When you mixed up Clorox bleach with red lye and tossed it in the face of 30-year-old Sabrina Greenlee. You were sentenced to 20 years for assault and battery with intent to kill. This was all over a boyfriend that you both shared.
So we have a heated argument. He's ranting and raving and fussing. Are you effing that nigga? And you gonna give me some? And so he ripped my skirt off. So we're here in my living room, and I didn't have a whole lot of furniture at the time.
Okay.
And so we're right there on the floor, and somebody rang my doorbell. I said, don't answer it. I felt like it was her, and it was.
So, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna
like right now.
Yeah, we're recording. We're ready to go. I'm gonna have to roll.
We're recording right now.
We're recording right now.
Oh,
they're gonna see all this like behind the scenes and stuff.
Are they?
Yeah.
Oh wow.
I'm just rolling up my sleeve because this is going to, I just realized that. So I'm just trying to make sure that it doesn't be distracted. But I'm gonna go ahead and introduce you. Like I said, we're gonna get right into it. Like we're not gonna,
Okay.
Yeah. So, all right. So, and thank you for just being so open and willing to like share, a story like this, because we hear about it all the time and we always hear one side of things. We never get both because a lot of times people are afraid to come out and speak about things that they've done, whether, especially to this degree, and so, I shouldn't have worn this shirt, but it's okay. It's okay. We're going to get to it. All right. So let me just go ahead and introduce you. So Savannah Grant.
That's correct.
Okay. On July 20th, 2002, you were 23 years old when you mixed up Clorox bleach with red lye and tossed it in the face of 30-year-old Sabrina Greenlee. She is now blind in both eyes due to the acid mix that was tossed in her face. I believe she's burned as well on her chest. She's had to go through multiple surgeries. You were sentenced to 20 years for assault and battery with intent to kill. This was all over a boyfriend that you both shared. Okay. He was not charged, surprisingly. Okay. And I have questions about that, and we're going to discuss that. And Sabrina Greenlee has been extremely vocal and has done several interviews detailing her side of the story. And now you were here to tell what happened and give your side and what led up to that unfortunate day. And what happened on that unfortunate day, as well as how life has been since you've been released, because you just served 20 years and you've been out 2 years, correct?
2.5.
2.5? Okay.
May 1st will be 3 years.
May 1st will be 3 years. Well, congratulations.
Thank you.
Like I told you earlier, you do not look like what you've been through.
Oh, wow. It's been hard yet easy, if that makes sense. My transition, things that I wasn't expecting, coming home, because I have been gone for so long. I left a 2-year-old son, and I came home to a grown man. So that was very different for me. My family, don't have a great relationship with my family, but they're my family, and I love them no less. At this point in my life, I just need to do what's best for me, So I kind of stay to myself. I go to work. I come home and try to be happy and move forward with my life.
Are you happy?
Today, I can say that I am truly happy because Well, I think things could be better. And when I say that, I mean as far as my relationship with my son. I wish that some family relationships were different. No, I don't have a love life. I'm not seeing anyone, but I'm not ready for that. I think it's going to take some time. I have dated once. Since I've been released, I met someone before I was released, and he was also incarcerated, but it didn't work out. So, cool. I thank God for my experience. So I know to look for those red flags that I never paid attention to in the past.
Let's talk about those red flags, because it was missing those red flags at 23 years old. And I don't expect any 23-year-old to be able to see the red flags that led up to you losing 20 years of your life, 20 years of your son's life, and the victim losing her eyesight in both eyes, nerve damage and things like that.
Yes.
I mean, a lot of people have been transformed because of red flags. Mm-hmm. But see, here's the thing though, and I know, yes, and I'm not trying to go around like your actions, because at the end of the day, it's like, once we turn 18, and hell, they're charging us a lot younger now. You can be 10 years old, and if you commit a crime that hurts someone, they can charge you as an adult, even though you are a child. When you do that, and your mind is still not developed. And so at 23, you were a young mother. The victim was much older than you. She was 30, mother of 4, a lot more experience on you. You guys were dating the same man. He's telling you one thing, he's telling her another thing. And that's ultimately what led up to the events that happened that day. Now, before we get into specifics, what was life like for you before you met the gentleman that you were dating? That you guys were both dating, you and Sabrina.
Right. So actually, I had just moved from Florida, Homestead, back to South Carolina.
Okay.
I had been in relationships in the past. Not necessarily always chose the right type of guy, but those guys that I dated, particularly drug dealers, they treated me well. They never put me in compromising situations. They never hit me. They took care of me. They took care of my family. And at that time in my life, I think I was 19 years old, maybe 20. I came home because I had to get custody of my, at the time, 14-year-old sister.
Okay.
Our mother passed away when I was 16.
Oh, wow.
Yes. So.
And where was Dad? Where was Dad? Where was your dad?
My dad, he's here. He's still alive, but he is active in his addiction even still today.
Okay. So mother died, dad was an addict, and you're leaving Florida, being taken care of and courted by drug dealers who were probably much older than you.
Yes, they were.
Okay. And now you're leaving Florida, going back to South Carolina. Even though South Carolina is a big state, it's still a small town in which you're going to go and get custody of your 14-year-old sister at 19 years old.
At 19.
Okay.
But that was my sister. So it wasn't a question for me to put my life on hold to make sure that she was okay. And that's what I did. Being the oldest of the 3 of us. So at that point, I needed to make some changes. I was just tired of dating those type of guys. I was tired of living that fast lifestyle that I was living. I always went to church. I had to go to church. It wasn't an option. And so no matter where I was at, I still found a church to go to. And I did the same thing with my sister when she lived with me. But I left Florida, and I wanted something different. So I just pretty much cut the people off that I was dealing with. And one night, my best friend and I, we went to AClD's and we were headed to the club. And I met Anton, the guy that's involved in this. I met his sister. And we became really close. And
do you mind saying Anton's name on camera, or you just want to leave that off? Because I mean, when I read the victim Sabrina Greenlee's account of things, and when she said that, you know, when the mixture was tossed in her face, he took her, put her in the car, and drove her to her gas station in her car. Left her there at the gas station.
Well,
and took off in her car. So I'm like, where is, like, somebody has got to say this motherfucker's name.
So today, honestly, it does not bother me to say his name.
Okay.
He did reach out to me over the years while I was in prison. The chaplain would call me up, and you know, when you got a call from the chaplain in prison,
yeah,
you know, that was a bad phone call. Typically it being that someone in your family has passed away. So when I got those calls, you know.
From Anton, the guy who you and Sabrina were both dating.
Yes, but I thought it was from a family member, and it automatically made me upset because I wasn't ready for that phone call. Mm-hmm. You know, I'm in prison. You know, it's expected, but you're never really ready for that moment to hear that your loved one has passed away. So that's what I was thinking whenever they called me, because it happened several times over the years. And I got there, and the chaplain put me on the phone, and it was him. And I just immediately broke down crying, and it just put me in a different space because I was not expecting that. And, you know, I prayed over the years, not only for him, but for her as well. And that's something that I prayed about so much. I didn't want to be bitter. Okay. I didn't want to be angry. I didn't want to point fingers at him, at her, but myself, what Savannah did, because it could have gone a different way, you know?
But you know, excuse my French, niggas do this shit every day.
Yes, they
doing it right now.
They're still doing it.
And so putting two women against each other, you happen to be much younger than Sabrina, and they just get to just throw their hands up and then come back and say, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
You know, or wait for you to get out and try to throw some dick at you and try to do better. And so that's why I was just like, why hasn't Sabrina said his name? Like, I'm just trying to figure this out, because he played you. You know, he played her, y'all fighting, you know, and we're going to get to the details of that. And this was not more than one fight.
Yes, it was.
So that led up to this. And so between you and Sabrina. And so that I always just wonder, like, why do the niggas get their names spared? And so, but let's go back. You're at AClD's, and you meet Anton's sister, the guy whom you and Sabrina both were dating.
Right.
Okay.
So as I stated, she and I got really close. As I said, I was in a different mindset at that time. I wanted something different. So at the time, I was living in Anderson, and I ended up moving to Greenville, South Carolina. That's where she lived, and that's where I met her at that particular night. And she invited me to church, and I started going to church, and I eventually moved in with her mother. She just said to me that, you need some rest. You need some time for Savannah. You've taken care of your sister. You've always had to take care of everybody. So she suggested, you stay with me for a while and just rest. And that's what I did. And during my time there in her home, she was very good to me. Her mother taught me a lot about prayer, how to pray, about God. It was a lot of things I already knew, but she just shared so much more. And during that time, living in her home, her son would call, and I would answer the phone, but he would be calling from prison.
Anton.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so eventually I had a conversation with him one day, and we started writing, because shortly after I moved out, okay, it's time for me to start back going to work, and me and my sister, so I got me a place and I started back working, and I continued these phone conversations with him and writing. So during that time, I wasn't seeing anybody. I was just pouring myself into work, taking care of my sister, and church. That's what I did.
Okay. And you had your son at the time, right? No, you didn't have your son.
I didn't have my son.
Okay.
I had my sister.
Okay.
And that's what I did. And during that process, over the course of years, we had this relationship from prison.
Okay.
And eventually he came home. And from the moment he got home, it was crazy. It was chaotic. It was always different women. And I was kind of easygoing. I've never been insecure. Always been very sure of myself. So, I allowed him to come and go. And that was probably something that I shouldn't have done. But like I said, I've always been secure with myself. So, I allowed him to come and go. But honey, it got so disrespectful with the different women. They would drop him off at my house, pick him up. They would call all times of the night. And it was just crazy, the level of disrespect. And I just got sick of it. And I could not get rid of him. Like when I tried to end the relationship, he would always come back, and I would always let him back. So I was like, okay, I gotta go.
Was the dick that good, or it was just...
You know what, Tasha?
It was just the connection.
I'm not gonna even lie to you. I'm gonna keep it all the way 100. It was that good to me. And I've had my shares of guys.
Yeah.
And to me, yes, it was.
Okay.
It was. I'm not gonna lie. But he had nothing else to offer. Yeah. I was used to being treated a certain type of way and being taken care of and, going out on dates. I was just used to a certain type of lifestyle. And so, and those guys never disrespected me. Like I was their lady. I was their girl. They didn't allow other females to disrespect me, But him... a whole nother level. I mean, toxic. I've never experienced anything like that before in my life. Never.
And you were so young.
I was. And to be honest with you, Tasha, I never cared about a lot of I cared about them, but I was never in love with them, And I never just dated one guy. That was my thing. Treat them like they treat me, but I fell for this guy.
You loved him.
And I loved him. I fell in love with him. And I allowed him to treat me in a manner that I've never allowed anyone to treat me. And when I tried to get out of it, I couldn't, you know. I would always let him come back. And so I told my sister, I said, I'm leaving. I'm leaving. So at this time, I got pregnant while he was incarcerated.
Okay. So he left.
No.
No, I'm saying because he went to jail.
Well,
so that helps things out.
No, he was already in prison when I met him now.
Okay, but then he gets out.
He gets out. He did not go back. What happened was I got pregnant before he was released. I was working for this company called MCI. It was a telephone company back in the day.
I remember that. I used to work for them too.
And I met my son's father there. And he was always trying to, you know, hook up or whatever. And we went out one night. And I had waited a while. It had been a while, over about a year and a half since I had had sex. And one night my sister was in the hospital having her daughter, my niece, and I had sex with him. One time.
And got pregnant.
One time I got pregnant.
Okay.
So, and that put me in a very, very big state of depression. Because here I am, I think I'm 20 at this time, raising this 15-year-old girl that's gotten pregnant. I had no idea because I was always working. And I'm thinking she's at basketball practice or wherever, but I had no idea she was pregnant. So I took her pregnancy hard, like it was me pregnant, because I just didn't feel like she was ready for a child at 15 years old. But she had my niece. She's here. And after I had sex with my son's father, I think I was embarrassed more than anything. That was not my idea of how I would be having a child. I wanted it to be with somebody that I cared about, that I loved, that I was in a relationship with. And we weren't in a relationship, you know? So I cut him off. I didn't even tell him I was pregnant until I found out I was pregnant when I was 5 months. I had no idea. My stomach was flat. I was gaining weight, but it was like my thighs and my butt. I had no idea I was
It's that
pregnant.
old school thing. You either carry babies in your titties or you carry babies in your hips and your butt. So
had no stomach. So once I found out, about a month later, I finally got up the nerves to telling me and my friend. And that didn't go the way that I planned for it to go either. I said that I was going to have an abortion, and I decided against it. So I had my son, and I told Anton when he called me one day that I was pregnant.
When he was in prison. Okay.
He was not happy.
What did he expect you to do? Wait on him?
Honey, you know how guys are. They're very territorial.
Yeah.
Even from back there.
Yeah.
They're territorial. Most of them are anyway. And in his eyes, you know, I'm his. And I mean, it happened. I didn't expect for it to happen, but life goes on, you know. Yeah. So, needless to say, I had my son. The day that I had my son, I got out of the hospital. Anton came home from prison.
Okay.
And like I said, it was just from the moment he got home, it was just crazy, chaotic, and it was just too much. It was always something, and we were always arguing and fighting about him and different females. And I just couldn't take it no more. I wasn't used to that. I wasn't used to living like that. I wasn't used to struggling. And My son's godmother lived in Maryland. So I gave a lot of stuff away and I packed up a few bags of mine and my son and I moved to Maryland. Okay. And I was there a year. My son was sick. He got RSV and he was in the hospital all the time. And I let my son's father convince me to move back to South Carolina, and that was the worst thing I could have ever done.
Because that's what put you in the position. Well, I mean,
I think I was home a little over a year before the incident happened.
So you get home. Are you and your son's father in a relationship, or are you just co-parenting?
No, I wouldn't even call it co-parenting, Tasha, because he didn't help me. He really, truly didn't become a father to my son until years after I went to prison, and I didn't force him.
Okay.
I didn't force him. Okay. I took care of my son on my own.
Okay.
You know, so
you're back home, well, in South Carolina, and so Anton is back in the picture as soon as you get back?
Yes, honey. He wasn't even out of the picture. So when I would come back for holidays, after I moved to Maryland, I did see him a couple of times, and it was still women. Had some encounters with some other females. And
now, were there fights with these other women?
Once it was. I'm going to be completely transparent. Yes, it was.
Okay.
Yes, it was.
So would they confront you? Would they always?
They would always confront me. So the way that Anton explained it, they always knew about me. I just didn't know about them until they called my house, because they were always called my house. I guess they wanted me to know about them. And so that's just the way it went, and it was always that way. And I didn't find out about Sabrina until after I moved back from Maryland.
Okay.
Yeah, so and I didn't find out until after the incident during my court trial that they had been seeing each other, even before I left South Carolina to go to Maryland. Okay.
So Sabrina and Anton, so it was kind of years in the making. So basically it was you and Anton and Sabrina.
And whoever else.
Yes. Okay. And so when did so you're back home with the baby, you're seeing Anton, women are confronting you, you're fighting with other women, physically fighting, okay?
I had one other physical fight with another female, yes.
And how did that go?
Honey, that did not go well at all. She had been calling my house all night long, hanging up, calling. And I knew about this girl because she went to high school with my sister.
Okay, so she was young.
She was young, really young. So she went to high school with my sister. My sister did not care for Anton. So whatever information she could find out, or she made sure I knew. So she went to the prom, and she tells me, guess who's at the prom?
Don't tell me Anton grown ass was at the prom. How old was he?
Grown.
Like 30?
No,
because Sabrina was 30.
I think he was like, I didn't realize that he was close in age to me too. So he is older than me. So I was 23 when I went to prison. So he must have been like 25.
Okay.
Yeah.
So he's at prom at 25 years old.
He's at prom with this high school girl. And clearly she's into her feelings about him as well. And so she kept calling the house, and I was like, why do you keep calling my house? I have a baby here. You know, why do you keep calling and hanging up all night long? Mm-hmm. So I went to Anton's, it was the complex where his mother lived at, but he was at a different apartment where he hung out at. So I went there looking for him, not knowing that this young girl was going to be there. So I get to the house and she's there. And she and I had an altercation. We fought. And she beat me in my face with an iron. And I ended up cutting her on her arm. So I wasn't arrested because I didn't have a background. That's the only background I had ever had.
And she was underage.
Yeah, she was underage. She was. I really don't know what happened as far as anything with her parents. I wasn't arrested. They let me do PTI because I had no prior charges.
Okay.
So I went through that whole thing, and that was enough for me. So I thought.
Okay.
And I just tried to stay clear of mess because it seemed like I was always getting into something and always arguing with somebody because of him. And so I moved back to South Carolina. I'm working downtown Greenville for this debt collection agency. And Anton and I, we weren't together. We would see each other from time to time. We would probably hook up and, have sex from time to time, but we weren't in a relationship. At this time in my life, I was seeing other people because the whole time I was with him, I would never deal with anyone else. I would not. I wouldn't.
Yeah.
And so at this time, I was like, okay, I'm going to see other people. So I'm hanging out. I never went to the club. I went to work, church, home, out to eat. That's all I did. So when I moved back from Maryland, it was different. I'm out mixing and mingling and just hanging out, living. Mm-hmm. And one of my friends, homeboys, they was like, he's seeing this chick named Sabrina, the stripper chick that works at Godiva's. I was like, nah, I don't know her. I never heard of her, never seen her. And he was like, you guys kind of favor a lot. And I was like, I don't know who she is. Until one day I was at my cousin's house and Anton apparently used Sabrina's home phone and called me at my cousin's house, and she called back. But she had a conversation with my cousin, not me. And so my cousin called me and told me the nature of the conversation with the two of them. And she said that they talked for hours, and she told her all sorts of stuff, that they had been dating and how long they had been dating, and she met him at the club where she was dancing at. And after that is when everything started with she and I.
Now, when you say started, like, because she talked to your cousin, what was your reaction when she spoke to your cousin about you?
I wasn't upset because, at this point, I'm used to it with all the other different women. She was no different to me. I had been going through this for years, Okay. So I didn't care. Okay. I didn't care. I'm doing my own thing. I'm seeing other people, just living, and I really was kind of glad because I didn't have to deal with him on that type of level anymore.
So she was now in your place.
She was now in my place. Okay. And I was so glad, to be honest with you, because it was so much. It was stressful. I was sick of the arguing, sick of the fighting, all the different females. Yet I was glad, yet I had empathy for her because I had gone through the very same thing.
Now, she was much, like I said, older than you and Anton. And she had already had 4 children at the time. I think she explained in her interviews that she had worked at an automotive plant during the day, and she was an exotic dancer at night. So she said she was working 2 jobs to take care of 4 kids. And so, and then she explained kind of like what led up to the incident, but she never gave any background. But she does consider herself a victim of domestic violence, because this is sort of kind of in the domestic violence range, where you have 2 women that are dated the same man, and you guys are fighting as a result of the relationship with him. You know what I'm saying? Because otherwise,
I do.
So it's, I can kind of see why she would say, I'm a domestic violence survivor and a victim. So after she called you, when was the first time that you guys ever like met?
The first encounter was at a hair salon. It was an African braiding shop. So I didn't know she was there. I had just got my hair done, braided, and I went back to see if they could pin my hair up in a style. And she was sitting in the chair.
Oh.
So I left.
So you knew it was her?
Yeah, I mean, the reason that I knew it was her, because the club that I was going to, the guy that I was talking to ran the club.
Okay.
So he pointed her out to me. He would always tell me, you know, you need to be careful, because I always went to the club by myself. Everywhere I went, for the most part, I went alone.
Okay. And
so he was telling me, you know, her and her stripper friends, her homegirls are in here. They have a reputation of whatever, and I don't want them to do anything to you. So I was like, you know, I'm good. So I knew her face, but never had any interaction with her. She never said nothing to me in the club. Ever.
Okay. And did she know it was you in the club?
I think she did. I'm almost certain she did, because Anton would call me and he would say little things like, I heard you was in the club with that nigga, and he knew everything I was doing because she would tell him.
Okay. Okay.
So yeah, we even had a whole fight because she told him that I was seeing that guy, and he drove to my house one day and asked me if I was seeing him, and I was like, yeah, I'm seeing him. And that was his first time ever hitting me. He had never hit me before, but that was the first time.
Oh, wow.
I guess he didn't like the fact that I was seeing somebody else.
Okay. So you see her in the African braiding shop, you leave.
As I'm leaving, I'm in my car, I'm pulling off. She came out of the shop yelling, screaming, I'll beat your ass. Just screaming all types of obscene, whatever. I laughed at her and I pulled off. I wasn't going to argue with her.
Okay.
So that was that. So after that incident is when her and her stripper friends, they started harassing me. They harassed me for months. They would come to my home. They would call my cell phone. They would call the house. They would ride up and down my streets. And it went on for months. It was so bad that I would start parking my car in the back. I would, you know how you change your tint on your television to dim it? So I would do that to make it look like I wasn't home, and park my car in the backyard so it would appear like I wasn't there, but I was there with my son. And they would call, they would ring the doorbells, my tires would be flattened. I always got threats from her and her friends, like all the time.
Did you guys ever fight before that incident? Like physically?
Once.
Okay.
Every time she called my home, every time she came to my home, I called the police. And I remember one time, this one particular officer came. Matter of fact, it was the night that Sabrina drove from Florida. One of her daughters played basketball. She was in an AAU basketball tournament in Florida. And she drove straight from Florida to Greenville to my home. And someone was knocking at the door. It was like 4:35 a.m. So I looked out of my bedroom window and I saw a Lexus, but it was white. And the guy that I was dealing with at the club, his Lexus was Hunter's green. So I was like, but sometimes he would switch up. Sometimes it would be a Lexus Jeep. And I was like, well, maybe this is him. You know, he's just switched up. So I went to the door and I was like, who's there? And she said, Sabrina. And I said, I know this lady is not at my door, knocking on my door. I was just completely blown. And so I said, who's there again? Because I'm like, did she say this was Sabrina? So she said, it's Sabrina. So I opened the door and it's a glass door, screen door. And so I'm speaking to her through that door. And she was very nice in the beginning. She apologized for coming to my home that time of morning. And I was, you know, I wasn't upset. I was like, okay, because she wasn't nasty. In the beginning, she wasn't.
Okay.
And I stepped outside to talk to her on the porch. And she explained to me that she had just driven from Florida from her daughter's AAU basketball game. And she had spoken to Anton earlier. And she had tried to call him back at some point during the night for some time, and he didn't answer. And see, that was the thing with her. Whenever she could not reach him or find him or knew where he was at for that matter, she always thought he was with me. But I wasn't the only female he was seeing. She automatically thought that he was with me, and I don't know. And sometimes, Tasha, yes, he was. Yes, he was, because I would still have sex with him from time to time. I did. And so we're standing there on my porch talking, and she's telling me that Anton has told her that where I get my hair done at, and where I buy my purses from. And Tasha, they were not real Gucci. They were not real Coach.
Yeah.
It was not real.
Yeah. Yeah.
You know? So she asked me, how do you afford the things that you afford? And I said to her, I said, you know, I don't knock what you do. But for me, I said, I work very hard for what I have, and my bonus checks pays very well. And unlike you, I do not have to shake ass to get what I want.
Oh Lord.
And anything. I'm just telling you, that's I never forget it. These are things that I have played back in my head for so many years, so I never forget it.
Okay.
Verbatim, you know? So this is what I said to her. I said, you know, and I said to her again, you know, not to knock what you're doing. I just choose not to do it. And I said, anybody that I deal with, they're going to help me. And so she was like, okay. And then in the next moment, she completely flipped. Is he in there? Push me out the way, trying to go in my house. Is he in there? I just need to know if he's in there. Like, she was a totally different person. And I said, Sabrina, you need to leave. I said, you need to leave. She would not leave. We fought.
In your house?
No, we were on my porch.
Okay.
And we did get to like the threshold of the door. And so I was able to get to the cardless phone, and I called the police. And her daughter sitting right there in the car. I don't think Caleb was home with me that night. He was with his godmother.
Okay.
But her daughter was right there in the car. Drove all the way from Florida.
Angry, looking for Anton.
Looking for him.
Ooh, that must have been some great. I just can't imagine.
Honey, I never want none like that again in my life. And I'm just being honest with you. Yes, I mean, I'm being completely transparent.
So I'm just trying to picture. So you, from the conversation that she's having with you, it seems as if he was telling her things
about me,
about you, to get her jealous.
I can't even say if that was the case.
Okay.
Because I know, when you're with somebody, you have pillow talk. I don't know the extent of theirs, or I don't know if he told her these things about me to get her jealous. I can't say that. I don't know. I have no idea. So I can't say if he was trying to make her jealous or not, but I do know that everybody that he ever dealt with always knew about me, who I was. I just didn't know who they were.
Okay. So you guys are fighting, and how did the fight end?
Because I got to my cardless phone and I called the police. And when I called the police, she left.
Okay.
And as she was leaving, she had been gone not a large amount of time, but by the time the police got there, I explained to him what happened, and told him that we had an altercation, and he was really nasty. He was like, "So y'all fighting about a man?" And I was like, "Sir, it's not about a man. It's about her keep coming to my home like she pays the rent here, fighting me." I said, at this point, it's just her harassing me. For me, it wasn't about a man. Maybe it was for her, but this is what he said to me. And anytime that I called the police, I just never experienced anything like that. They did nothing to help me. Like, remember I told you the time that she told him that I was seeing this guy, and he came to my house and jumped on me?
Yeah.
I called the police. I pressed charges. We went to court. Judge Diane Cagle, I never forget her name, went to her every time. This particular time, Sabrina was there. I don't even know why she was there at court, because she had nothing to do with the situation. And they threw it out. My face was black and blue, and they threw it out. He was never arrested. They never did anything to him. And while we were there, I addressed all the other issues about how her and her friends had been coming to my house, and how she would come to my house. And Judge Cagle said to me, as long as she don't come on your property, she can ride up and down your street as much as she wants to. She pays taxes. And I said to Judge Diane Cagle, I said, well, she doesn't pay taxes. She shakes ass.
Oh.
I pay taxes. And she said, well, as long as she don't come in your yard, she can ride up and down your street as much as she wants to. And those were the type of responses that I got all the time. Anytime I tried to seek help, nobody would do nothing to help me. And at this point, I just wanted Anton to leave me alone. I stopped dealing with him. I stopped talking to him. I stopped taking his phone calls. And the day of the incident, I had to work 4 hours. It was on a Saturday. And I went to work. First of all, I took my son to his godmother's house. I was going out of town when I got out of work. And I got a call from a local phone number, and I answered the number, and it was Anton. And I said to him, I said, "Where are you?" He said, "I'm at school. I'm getting ready to leave school. I want to take you out." And I said, "Take me out with what? You don't have any money." Mm. And he was like, "I have money." And I said, "Well, where did you get money from?" And he said, "Sabrina gave me money." And I just shook my head. I said, "You know what?" I said, "No. Mm-mm." And so I said, "I'll call you back later." He was like, "No, are you going to go out with me?" I was like, "No, I'm leaving and I'm going out of town." And I hung up the phone. So he kept calling back until I wouldn't answer. And so I got an in-house call, and it was the security guard downstairs. And he said to me, "Miss Grant, you have a visitor here." And I was like, "So who's here to see me?" So I logged off.
And this is while you're at work.
I'm at work.
Okay.
So I log off. This is a debt collection agency. And I go down to the lobby, and it's Anton causing a whole scene. "Are you gonna see me when you get off?" And I was like, "No." And he grabbed me by my arm, and he was like, you gonna fucking see me. And "Are you effing that nigger?" And I was like, "No." Because he was thinking that it was the guy that I was seeing from the club, but it was somebody totally different. Tasha it wasn't even sexual. It was someone that I met that was taking me out. But I didn't feel the need to explain that to him. He wasn't my man anymore, so I didn't go into the details. I just told him I was going out of town and I wasn't going to see him, and he didn't want to hear that response. So he's pulling me by my arm, and I'm begging him, "Do not make a scene on my job." I said, "I need my job. I need my job." This is the way I said it to him. "I need my job. Please do not cause a scene on my job." And he said, "Are you going to see me after work?" And I said, "Yeah." And so I left. He left. I went back upstairs, and I don't know, I just had this weird feeling, and I was kind of avoiding leaving work for whatever reason. And so I got off at 12, and so I just kind of stalled around till about 12:30, hoping that by the time I got off and got back home, he wouldn't be there. So as I'm going down the road to go to my home, he was coming the opposite direction, like he was leaving from my place. So by the time I get in my yard, get the key in the door, he's behind me. So we have a heated argument. He's ranting and raving and fussing. "Are you effing that nigga? And you gonna give me some?" And so he ripped my skirt off. So we're here in my living room, and I didn't have a whole lot of furniture at the time.
Okay.
And so we're right there on the floor, and somebody rang my doorbell. I said, "Don't answer it." I felt like it was her, and it was. He answers the door. I grab some clothes to put on. She comes in. He leaves out. We're fighting.
In the house.
In the house. Hard down fighting. And I'm telling her, I said, "Leave. Please leave my house." And she's cursing me out and, "Bitch, I'm going to do this to you and I'm going to do that." And so she steps out on the porch, and now mind you, he's in her white Lexus. And she's in, because she had several cars at the time. She had a Expedition. She had a blue Honda Accord, and she had the white Lexus. And He's standing in my driveway. It was my car, the Lexus on the other side of my car, and her Honda directly behind my car. So he's at the Lexus and she's on the porch screaming and yelling at him, cursing him out. And I'm telling her to leave, and she's cursing him out and she's cursing me out. And I said, Sabrina, leave my house. Leave my effing house. And she wouldn't leave. And so she came like she was going to rush back in again. So I ran to the kitchen and I grabbed this cup. It was a stakeout cup, a restaurant that they had in Greenville at the time. And grabbed the cup. It was a big, tall cup. And I added a little bleach and some hot water. The hot water in my sink was extremely hot. So in my head, I'm going to throw this hot water on her. Completely forgot, Tasha, that weeks prior, I had my garbage disposal was stopped up. So I bought Red Devil Eye in a canister, like Drano, to unclog the garbage disposal. And it was very little left. So I poured it up in this cup and I said I used the rest of that at a later date and left it there on the countertop.
So it was like a red cup with the red dye in it?
No.
Oh, okay.
It was a stakeout cup.
Oh, stakeout.
Stakeout was a restaurant back in the day.
Yeah, I remember
so it was
that.
the big tall stakeout cup. And it couldn't have been that more of the Red Devil Eye Drano left in the original container. So I was cleaning and I poured the rest of that up in that cup and threw the container away. And I left it there on my countertop with the rest of my cleaning supplies. And like I said, I grabbed this cup, added the hot water to it, and put bleach in it. I don't know why I put the bleach in it, but I did.
Yeah.
And went to the door. She was standing there, cursing him out. And when I opened the door, she cursing me out, and I threw it on her. And time I threw it on her, the way that she screamed, the way that she yelled, I knew I messed up, because it wasn't your normal type of scream. It wasn't normal. I knew I messed up. I ran, I got the phone, I called the police, I told them what I did. I remember going back to the door and I saw her trying to find her way to the car. I cursed Anton out. At this time, I'm cursing him out. And it pissed me off because he didn't help her to the car. He didn't help her, and it pissed me off. I knew at that point what I had did. No, I didn't go help her because I was scared. I was scared to even leave off my porch. I never even stepped a foot off of my porch. And I saw her trying to find her way to the car. So he didn't come to meet her. He helped her once she found her way to the car. He put her in on the other passenger side and they drove off. I don't know where they went. I found out where they went when the police got to my house because I called the police. When they got there, I told them what I did. And he said, "Is this the incident up the street at the Little Cricket?" And he told me what happened, and I just lost it. He told me she couldn't see, they was airlifting her, and I just completely lost it because I was like, I know I just didn't do this. I know I just didn't do this. So I'm crying, I'm upset. And at the time, my sister was pulling up and she said to me, what you crying for? She cursed me out. What the hell you crying for? You should have been did it. I didn't do it on purpose, but she was like, you should have been did it because they've been messing with you for months. But that wasn't my intent. That wasn't my intent. I was afraid. I was afraid. You know, I've been fighting this lady for months and I completely forgot that it was in the cup. The red, it wasn't even enough, but it was enough. Clearly it was, because
she claims that Anton put her in the car, drove her to a gas station. I guess it was a Cricket gas station.
A little Cricket, which was right up the street.
And left her there, told the counter clerk to call, I guess, 911. And they called 911, and that's how they got there. But she said he left her. So he left the scene completely. So it's just you,
to my knowledge,
and her.
I wasn't there.
No, I'm just saying, like, once your house is left, okay, they're driving up the street. He leaves her and takes off in her car, from what I read.
I wasn't there, but that's the story that I heard on her end as well.
Right.
So I can't say if he left her or not.
Yeah.
I thought that he went with her, but I can't say that he did. I can't say that he left her because I don't know. I was at home. They told me not to leave because I told them I was going out of town. They said I could not leave. And
until they figured out what was going on.
Hours later, they came back and arrested me. Over in the morning, I think I was in there a total of a day, maybe. I got out and I was told that I should not stay at my house. My son's father came and picked me up from my son's godmother's house. Her family had been riding up and down my street. Clearly they was upset. I get it. I understand. I totally get it. I left. I went to Anderson. I stayed with my son's father for a little while. And I didn't want to be there. So I stayed in motels, me and my son, until I was able to move and find another place.
How long were you out on bail?
Right at a year. I worked. My job was very supportive because they knew what had been going on. The parking garage that I had been using, which was across the street, or down the street across from the bus station, they moved me to a different parking garage directly behind the company because I had to tell them, you know, what had been going on, because they kept harassing me. It wasn't just at my home. It was on my job as well. And so my bosses knew. I had to tell them. I didn't want to lose my job. So I had to tell them. So they were very supportive. They knew what was going on. I worked up until the day that I went to trial. I didn't realize the severity of, I knew I messed up. I knew I messed up. I got me an attorney. I worked. I paid for it myself. I didn't ask anybody for any help because I put myself in that situation. Although two of my friends from Atlanta came and posted my bail, but other than that, I asked nobody for help because I put myself in that situation. and I worked up until the day of my trial. And I got an attorney, and my attorney said to me that he showed me the pictures, and what I saw, what he showed me, I couldn't believe that I did that. I couldn't believe that how she looked.
I mean, both of you guys, like,
very beautiful lady.
Yeah, no, I'm saying she's still beautiful.
Still is. To me, she is.
Yeah, no, she's still, like, for someone who went through what she went through,
I think
she's not, like, you could tell, like, she's beautiful now, even as an older woman. She's clearly like in her 50s now, and still has a beautiful shape, beautiful face. She still takes, care of herself. And like I said, when I saw you, you don't even look like what you've been through. Here.
So when I saw those pictures, I couldn't believe that I did that to her. Those wasn't my intentions. I was afraid. I had been bullied for months. It wasn't planned. It wasn't plotted. It wasn't an attack on her life.
There's this old saying. I remember, it's not even an old saying. I used to hear my aunts and my grandmama and them talk about it all the time. They used to throw shit on people all the time, whether it was a man that was beating on them or another female. I remember hearing my mama one day talk about, like, there was a girl, she couldn't get off her, so she took sand and threw the sand in the girl's eyes. And so it was always hot water or bleach or chemicals and things like that. And so, it was kind of something that in the deep South.
I remember my attorney telling me that, not verbatim in those words, but he was saying that was something that they used to do in the older days. Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it was definitely not an attack on her life.
Because they did charge you with assault.
With intent to kill.
And it's like...
Yeah, I did not try to kill her. Are they
saying that it could have killed her, though?
Oh, yes, for sure. I didn't even realize it until the trial, listening to the expert witnesses, the doctors, and it.
So they basically said it was premeditated, is what they were trying to say.
That never came up.
Okay.
It never came up. Assault with intent to kill, you have to prove that it was malicious. This is what I believe, because I played it back. I didn't understand it. I had all the evidence. I had never been in a situation like that. So my homeboy came. He called me the next day I was released. They came from Atlanta. They posted my bail. And he said to me the next day, I left Anderson with my son's father. I met him. I didn't have to be to work until, I think, 10 or maybe 12 o'clock. I can't remember. And I met him at my place, and he said to me again, he said, you got to move. You can't stay here. Mm-hmm. They keep driving up and down your street. He said, but I want you to stop it. It was a Eckert's up the street. And he said, I want you to get a disposable camera. Take pictures of the crime scene. That's what I did. You could see where it was white residue on the porch where I threw it on her. You could see the splatter. I took pictures of all of that. I took pictures of my living room, the entrance. I took pictures of everything.
Did it show that there was like a fight inside, or?
Well, you couldn't really see because remember, I didn't have a whole lot of furniture.
Okay.
At the time, I had a futon, and little end tables. I didn't even have a whole lot of furniture at the time, so nothing was disarrayed. Nothing was out of order. Like it was the first time, because I had furniture the first time that we got into the fight. And she, so I took pictures. I gave them to my attorney, got them developed, gave them to my attorney. He led me to think that everything was good. I went to work. I took care of my son. I went on with life. You know, I knew I had this thing before me, but it was like, Savannah, you were trying to protect yourself. I never thought that I would get that much time. But in the back of my mind, I was like, I did this, so I have to get something, you know? But 20 years, I never thought that I would get 20 years. And
do you think it had a lot to do with them seeing her in court and seeing the pictures?
That played a very vital part of it. But this is what I believe convicted me. And I said it. I've played it back. I've read my court trial transcripts front to back. I've read them since I've been home. What convicted me was Anton's statement. He told them that I said, I grabbed that cup and I ran out into the yard and said, "This is for you, bitch," and threw it on her. I never said that, Tasha. I never stepped a foot in my yard. I never stepped a foot on the porch. We fought right there at the threshold of my door. I didn't even step a foot on my porch. I never left.
And you know what's so funny is, like, when I read her account, she said that you came in the yard.
I did not. I never stepped a foot on my porch. She was on my porch. We fought right there at the door, at the threshold, right there. Well, actually, she came all the way in.
Okay.
Because Anton and I was like right there in the living room on the floor.
So it's like, as soon as you opened the door, it must have been one of them small houses.
It wasn't a house. It was a duplex.
Oh, okay.
It was a duplex. So, you know, you have the front door, the glass screen door, and when you walk in, all of the
everything
living room
is right
there.
Right. Okay.
So you have a little piece of something right there on the threshold, and then it's the carpet, but everything is right there together.
Why would? That's why I'm like, you know, and it's like every time you say his name, I just get heated, you know.
And I used to.
Especially when you read them court transcripts and he says, and he just blatantly lied, like, "This is for you, bitch." Like, that sounds like some shit.
Made me feel. I was in love with this guy. You was in prison. Anton had a life sentence, Tasha. He had a life sentence. He did 8 years, and his case was overturned. He knew how it felt to be in prison. Now, and for years, I wanted to know why. I still want to know why. I still want to know why. Why? And then I look at me, I look at her, because I have to be honest about the whole situation. It wasn't just one family or one person affected by this situation. It was her family, my family, her children, my child.
Yeah.
You know? And I'm not defending him about what I'm about to say. I'm not defending him. So I don't know if he was torn between the two of us. Look, she's messed up. She could have died. And then here's this lady that I've been with, you know, that at one point I cared about. I don't know what he was thinking or why he lied, but that testimony is what convicted me. Everything else, I had proof. I had proof that she had been harassing me. I called the police every single time. Every single time. And she would say her reason for coming to my house was to get her Lexus.
From Anton.
From Anton. And she says that she could drive by my road and see my place from the road. That's not the case. You knew where I lived at because he showed you where I lived at. You had been coming to my home prior to that day. Where I lived at, there's a main road. And then off of the main road, you had to go down another road. And then you had to go to another road to get to my home. Even off of that other road that you had to turn off of to get to my home, you still couldn't see because it set back. You would have to physically drive up in the cul-de-sac. There was a cul-de-sac. You had to physically know. You couldn't ride by and see my place. You couldn't see my car or anyone else's car from the yard for that matter. You couldn't. You had to know where I lived at. And she knew because she had been coming. She didn't just drive by going to his mother's house looking for her car. No, she drove from Clemson to Greenville to my home like she had been doing. And yeah, she may had been looking for her car, but she knew where I lived at. She just didn't ride by and saw her car in my yard.
Did you ever get a chance to apologize to her in court?
No, I did not. Never got a chance to apologize. Everything happened so quick. It was, I didn't understand it. I was so numb, like in La La Land, because I didn't understand what was going on. I was quiet. I was in disbelief. They read my verdict. My family wasn't even there.
Yeah.
When they came back from recess, I was already gone and sentenced. You know, it happened so quick.
So they just sentenced you to 20 years.
20 years. He said, Judge John Few said, Miss Grant, I have no problem with sentencing you to the maximum sentence of 20 years to South Carolina Department of Corrections.
What was going through your head, Lynn?
I was numb. I couldn't believe it. It didn't hit me until months later. It didn't hit me. I'm on this big bus in these heels and skirt and blazer, going to prison, leaving my son. I was like, is this real? Like, is this real? That's the only thing that was going through my head. And it was months that it really, reality set in. Yeah.
How was prison? I know it wasn't good, but like, how was it for you?
For me, it wasn't easy. But like I said to you earlier, it was hard yet easy because I knew God. I couldn't have did that time. If I didn't have a relationship with God. There was no way. There was no way that I could have did that, the amount of time that I did without having a relationship with God. I read a lot. I studied a lot. I went to Bible classes. I took advantage of everything I could back there. I prayed a lot. I did not want to be bitter. God, forgive me for what I did, was my prayer. God, heal Sabrina's heart. Allow her to forgive me. Cover her children. Cover her family. That was my prayer for years, because I was guilty. I felt so guilty. I felt like I deserved to be there. But for that long, no. I did what I did. I never denied it. I also prayed, God, I want her to know what I'm going through, my experience here. I prayed that. And one day, I got locked down in my room. The major, do not let Savannah grant out of her room. I wasn't a problem inmate. I didn't get in trouble. I did get in a lot of fights when I first got to prison. A lot. Because it was publicized. It was on TV, Maury Povich. And the girls there.
Sabrina went to Maury Povich?
Yes. I remember going down the sidewalk. I was working in the cafeteria. And everybody was pointing at me. They pointed. They said all sorts of stuff. You jealous bitch. You was jealous and you threw that stuff on that girl, and these are all the things.
And Maury Povich know how to hide in a trailer too. Like, he's real, like he exaggerates the shit. Like,
well, he did, because they reenacted it. Like, Anton and I lured her in an alley, is what it was. I had officers, I had inmates, even when I called home, because I stopped doing what I was so embarrassed. I stopped working and ran to my unit. I left work.
If
Everybody
you see my
was
face
pointing.
right now, like everybody has watched Maury Povich. I may have to put that in here, like, just.
Yeah, so that blew everything up so much more. And I fought a lot, because I was always trying to defend myself. And I remember the last time I went to lock up for fighting. One of the officers said to me, I remember her name, but I won't say it. She said to me, Savannah, your case is kind of high profile, like Susan Smith. And you can't keep running around here fighting everybody. I said, well, ma'am, I'm nothing like Susan Smith. So you need not compare us, I was kind of offended until I got the chance to truly meet her and know
Susan
her
Smith?
as a person. Yes.
Okay.
I met some good people there, and I met some bad people.
The lockdown. Why did he lock you down? Like, I remember.
Locked me down because Sabrina's mother came. Rosalie, I think that was her name.
Mm-hmm.
She was there. I worked up front in medical, and at the time that she was there, I would be leaving to go to work, so they locked me down. They were supposed to send me to lock up, but the major was like, no, I'm not locking her up. She's not a problem inmate. I'll just lock her in her room until we can get one of them off of the compound. And
so wait a minute. Sabrina's mother is in prison?
No, not anymore. She was.
Oh my God.
She was in prison.
This is the story that just won't stop giving. So you're in prison. Maury Povich is on TV reenacting that you and Anton conspired to lure her down an alley to do this to her. She's on the show giving them all they got just for the ratings, okay? And then you're going through all of this. And then her mother gets sent to prison? For what?
To my knowledge, it was for writing bad checks. She was writing bad checks, and so she was able to pay those checks off and leave. So, but until then, because it's policy and procedure, because she did tell them that I was there and everything that I did to her daughter. And she said some other things to some other people about.
Like what she was going to do to you if she saw you?
Well, no, she never said that. It never.
Well, what did she say?
She told pretty much the truth about what really happened. To my knowledge.
Don't tell me we got a Tokyo Tony out here on the streets.
So, I had a very good rapport with staff and the nurses. As I said, I worked in medical, and she was telling them who I was and who her daughter was and what happened. And she told them, that she had been harassing me for months. Now, this is the story that staff told me. She told them. She was passing around pictures of her daughter, showing them how she looked. And but to my knowledge, she did not say that she was going to bring any harm to me. She just stated the facts as to what really happened. And but because of policy and procedure, we couldn't be on the yard together.
Just in case.
Just in case. And that's what the major told me. She was like, because I was like, I'm not going to do anything to her. I said, I'm not. And she said, Savannah, you may not. But she said, Savannah, you may not, but it's protocol. It's procedure.
So how long were you locked down?
Oh, not long at all.
Okay.
Because whoever paid the checks off paid them off. So it was like maybe 12 hours until they got her off the yard, because one of us would have had to leave.
Oh, and go to another
facility.
Okay.
Yeah. So she was able to pay those checks off and leave.
Now you're in prison. Maury Povich is live. Sabrina's mother comes in. She leaves. You're fighting. You're taking classes. You're working. Her son. Now I don't want to say his name. It's not important. Was there ever any more beef?
Oh, of course it was.
When, they mentioned that her son is now gone pro.
Yes.
And she's now a domestic violence survivor advocate.
Once again.
Did you have to relive this all over again?
Every time there was something on television, I had to relive it again. And at this stage of my life, it didn't bother me. It didn't bother me when they called me jealous. It didn't bother me when they said, bitch, you still doing the time and you're gonna do it. Because I always had the attitude, okay, God, I'm here. I'm here. I did what I did. But you know my heart. You know I didn't mean to do it. The evidence was there. I filed appeals. I filed PCRs. I fought until I just couldn't fight anymore, because I did give up. I was just tired. I was exhausted. And I came to terms with, I have to do this time. And I wasn't going to keep fighting. And I thank God allowed me to go through those moments in my life, preparing me for when I got home. Because it's been a lot of the same things since I've been home.
Because her son is somewhat famous.
Right.
And she's in the spotlight, of course.
Right.
ESPN is doing write-ups on her. They're sharing her nonprofit. She's going around speaking to domestic violence victims. She's trying to advocate for it and things like that. And then now you're home after going through the waves of the Maury Povich and then him getting drafted, her son, and then, you know, him getting these big contracts. And now, like, the stories about her sitting along sideline, visualizing, you know, what it looks like. But, you know, when I hear you tell your story, and I'm going to say this, and I mean this, the prayers that you said for her, I can't help but seeing that as one of the legs, because, you know, it's different waves and how just blessings and manifestations come and how God kind of positions things, right? And so for you to be someone who has never denied or ever tried to say that you didn't do what you did, and here you go. And, you know, and to hear you say that you prayed for her and you prayed for her kids and, you know, that God would protect them and bless them and rise them.
He did.
He did.
He answered my prayers. He did.
And I want to make this clear. This is not you saying that you're responsible for her son's success. Because you know how people just get simple-minded. No, but this is just one of those things where, you know, it's kind of like you can't, it's like however you can change it around to make it better. And now she has a voice and she has a platform that she's using to advocate for this. Now, she hasn't gone into details about what transpired, right? But I don't think she's obliged to, right? Or entitled to do that. But someone who you've had to kind of, it's like you're still in prison because even now that you're home, you know, it's a small town in South Carolina where you're at, and people do not forget. And you know, in the small towns, it's even worse because time moves slow. So they're still reliving that. And then when you turn on the television and, you know, her son is there on Sundays and Thursdays and, you know, whatever he's doing. I mean, he's a pretty big deal out here in football right now. And then, you know, ESPN is doing write-ups on her, and it's a constant reminder. And then you got people with this mentality that just don't know how to let shit go. Right. And see that, like, you're here in South Carolina. She's there. And if you want to look at, like what more do you want from me? Because clearly she is not hurting for anything now. Like, this has been a long time. It's been 20 years. And so what I want to ask you is, because I mean, you know, me and you have talked about, and I was going to ask you to go into details about the specifics between you and your son, but because it's still so delicate, I don't want him watching this and reliving this and then having to sift through more because, you know, your son went unraised by you for 20 years. From house to house. And, you know, he's not playing football. He's not doing well, you know, all because of what transpired. My choice. Right. And so, and, you know, and I want to say this to you too, Savannah. You know, your prayers are powerful. Because like I said, you don't look like what you've been through. You've had cancer since you've been home. Yes. You've had a complete hysterectomy, thyroid surgery. They've removed your thyroid due to cancer. It's kind of like you're having to face another sentence when you come out. And then on top of trying to rebuild your life and you know, go forward, your son is still in pain. Yes.
because I wasn't there. And there's a lot of resentment. And, you know, I'm not going to force him. Gotta have to do the mending. Because sometimes when we try to handle things and do things our way, we mess it up. And I did that when I first got home. And so now I'm just going to let God do what God does and do the mending, because I know he is. I know he's working it out right now. So it will get better.
I know it will.
And whatever is going to have to take place for him to get his healing, it will happen.
Okay, we're good. And I just want to say, like, the empathy that I have for you, as well as the empathy that I have for Sabrina, because like you explained it, everybody was affected because of this.
Everybody was, not just her and her family, but so was mine.
Yeah.
So was my son. So was her children. Not only that, like, this happens a lot with females. This hasn't just started, you know, and that's why I'm so mindful of, in particular, no, I'm not afraid to be in a relationship. I'm more mindful. And what I've accepted and put up with in the past, I'll never do again. So, and if it means that I'm going to be by myself until I find that person that's going to honor me and respect me and treat me the way that I should be treated, then I will be alone until I meet that person. But this happens so often. We always get mad at the other woman and not the person that's truly at fault. You know, you don't never see the females, you know, confronting the dudes. But yeah, they may confront them. But for the most part, it's the two females fighting. It happens so often. So often. And I just, it's at this point, it's not about Sabrina. It's not about Savannah. But it's about the issue at whole. Because once you do a thing, Tasha, you can't take it back. I can't take back what I did.
And relationships are so short-lived, especially with men. You know, so short-lived. And it's like you fall out of love. I think back on the guys that I was getting into it with females about, you know, and it's like, I'm like, how could I even subject myself to that? And I would have never had any sort of issues with a female had it wouldn't have been for this particular individual lying to both of us and with feelings. And when you're young and you're in love, and then on top of that, you know how rare it is to find men who understand the biological physiology of like how a woman is built.
Right.
That adds on to it. And so and it's usually the guys that don't have nothing to offer because they got to have something that's going to keep you around. It's not their money. It's not their cars. And so they put a lot of time into knowing how to please you mentally, spiritually, and sexually. And it's like that and at the end of the day, when you take away that, it's like, what do you have? You know? And you know, and so like I commend you for just being woman enough to still, like, even though people still, you know, talk about you and, you know, they're harassing you on social media because this story just keeps coming up and up, and you haven't gone from platform to platform to do an interview and get on here and just, you know, you're like, listen, you know, what's done is done, and it's extremely unfortunate.
Yes.
And nothing that you're gonna say or do is gonna bring back Sabrina's eyesight, is going to undo the pain, the things that she's gone through, and vice versa, because your family and you have been tragically impacted by this as well too. And Anton, where is Anton? What is he doing now?
Based on what I've heard, he lives in Philadelphia. He's a truck driver. I'm not really sure.
Okay.
At some point, I need to know my why. Today, I feel like who I am today, I would be able to have that conversation with him. I just want to know why, why did you say that I said, this is for you, bitch? You lied on me. It never happened that way.
I think it was just in his DNA to lie. And he probably don't even remember the lie.
He probably doesn't.
He
probably doesn't.
When you have liars to that degree, you can't expect nothing from them but that, Mm-hmm. And I just kind of wanted to know where he was and what life was like. But I know you've apologized during the interview and things, but is there anything you want to say to Sabrina and to her family in closing?
Yes, for sure.
Okay. Well, this is your camera right here.
Okay.
All right. Take your time. I'm not going to rush you.
First of all, to her children, I don't know their names. I know that it was hard for you guys. I know as a parent, as a mother myself, what you experienced was hard. And I apologize for my wrong, for what I did, for making your life harder than what it had to be. I truly apologize for what I did to your mother. Sabrina, I pray that one day that you would truly and sincerely be able to forgive me for what I did to you. I did not mean for it to be to that degree. I didn't. So I just pray that you forgive me. I ask you to forgive me for what I did to you. And I still pray for you daily. I pray for your heart. I pray that God changes your heart and that you will truly, I can't say it enough. I can't say it enough. That you would truly be able in your heart one day to forgive me. So I just ask you to forgive me, to you and your family and everyone in your family and around you that was affected by this. And I pray that you will have many good days before you and your family.
Y'all grown now.
Yeah.
Y'all are not young mothers anymore. I couldn't imagine the stress on her, mm-hmm. because she said that, she's only really spoken about her son's father, the one who's, in the limelight, but said that he definitely wasn't there for him. But I can imagine she was sort of a single mother of 4. Mm-hmm. And, her talking about working 2 jobs and dancing at night, automotive plant during the day just to feed them. And then you got a man, Anton, that's living off of her, and doing the same thing to her that he did to you. And and both of y'all are from, this is, you know what's sad about it? It's like, this is the culture. I interviewed a young girl last week who had gotten into a fight with another female on live about her, like their children's father, like their baby father, right? And I said, you know what, I understand sometimes as women and as people, we fight. That is a natural part of who we are. We're going to fight. That's why they have fighting. That's why they have the UFC. They have all types of sports involved in fighting, because as nature, that's what we do.
Right.
But then there's this level where we just take it up a notch, where we just feel like we just got to do more, right? And because we've lost control. And I commended her for not, and the other woman for not taking it a step above, that they fought their issues out and they were able to go home and take care of their children. They didn't grab no knives, no weapons. And people probably thought, like, why are you commending this? Because it's a normal part of the human race for people to fight.
Right. Out of anger, out of emotions.
That is no, and for me to try to expect people, and my husband said something that was so powerful this morning. I couldn't, he had to come back and explain it to me because I didn't get it, because I was just working and I was putting together, just kind of the notes and the questions for our interview. And he said, only God is perfect, Tasha.
Yes.
And yet we don't know what he looks like or she. And I said, and I just kind of like shrugged my shoulders. Like, yeah, right. God is perfect. Then he came back. He was like, you didn't hear me, did you? He said, only God is perfect. And yet no one knows what God looks like, which means we don't know what perfection looks like.
Right.
And I looked at him. I'm like, you he get on my nerve. But he hits it every time. Yeah. And I was just like, it's just so perfect. We don't know what perfection is.
Right.
We don't know what being completely right or completely wrong is. All we know is by trial and error.
Right.
And this is one of the unfortunate things. But the fortunate thing is, like, you two are still here.
Thank God. We still have life.
She still holds her children. Her children still hold her. Like, and I'm sure all her other senses have heightened, because, like, when we lose sight, we gain other. It's like we can see better because now we can hear, feel intuitively. And not to say that sight is not important. It's definitely important, but, we just have to take what it is that we have and make the best of it. And I wouldn't wish that on anybody, And so that's the fortunate part about it. And I commended the young lady for, like, not taking it there. And she was like, right. Absolutely, Tasha. I was like, sometimes we got to fight. But to what extent?
Right. Does it stop?
When does it stop? And you guys were able to emotionally just pull back. And I think as humans, that's what we need to see more of. There's not going to be a day where we're going to not see people fight. It's just not going to happen. It's not in our DNA. It's not the way we're genetically made. It happens in the animal kingdom and everywhere. So it is just unrealistic for us to live in this way that we think is just perfect. And like my husband said, only God is perfect. And, we've never seen God, so we don't even know what perfection is. So it's just unrealistic expectations. And Savannah, I just want to thank you. You come a long way from home, and to tell your story, and you still got to go back to that home, to that small town, and now hear their thoughts and everything about this particular situation. But this is the first time that you've told your story. And you're entitled to that. And so I don't want you feeling guilty about you sitting here and doing this. And I'm honored to be able to facilitate this. And, as one woman to another, I my prayers are with you. They are with, Sabrina. They're with her kids. They're with your children, your grandchildren. And it would be beautiful if you two were to come together one day.
It most certainly would.
for all
women,
victims of,
because Tasha, we both were victims.
Come up to the mic, girl. We need to hear you, honey.
We were both victims.
Yes.
We were both victims, and there's so many more victims out there, because like we said earlier, this happens so often.
All the time. It's happening right now.
Somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, it just needs to get to a point where we don't get so caught up in our emotions and our feelings and do a thing that we can't take back. Because once it's done, we can't undo it.
And I want to tell you, I know by sitting in this room, first of all, by us taking that first FaceTime call, and I was listening to you speak, and it was just so much. You were just ready to just go. And I was like, no. I want to hear it the first time as well. I remember stopping you because you just wanted to get it out. And I was like, no. Save it until you get here. And I can feel that there is just no trouble. Like, you are at peace.
Because of God.
Like, I don't feel no, how the energy is transferable. Like, you are just.
Mm-hmm. Yes. It took me some time. Well, I can't even say I haven't always been in this place where there's been completely peace.
I wouldn't say that. No, and I'm not saying that. I'm saying now.
Now, yes.
Yes.
With prayer, with God. And I want to say this too. I know God is a healer. And I know if we condition our hearts, that God is faithful and just to heal us. And I want to say to Sabrina that God is a healer. He's a healer. Back in the Bible days, he gave people their sight back. I'm trusting God to do that for her.
Wow. And I do got to end on this note. You are very beautiful.
Thank you.
And when I look at Sabrina, I'm like, she is very beautiful.
She is.
Very beautiful. And I could, it's just, I'm just glad that we're still able to see that beauty in both of y'all. So,
yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.